Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. We're here, obviously, to celebrate Jason Cannon's new book, This Above All. So I will begin his introduction. Jason Cannon is a, can everybody hear me okay? Okay. Jason Cannon is a best-selling author and publisher, as well as an award-winning director, actor, playwright, improviser, and teacher. He has an MFA in directing, a master's in drama, and a quarter century in professional theater. Most recently, he served 10 years as an associate artist at Florida Studio Theater right here in Sarasota, and was producing artistic director of Ozark Actors Theater for 4 seasons. Jason has more than 100 credits as an actor, more than 120 credits as a director, and as a playwright, he has had 5 plays produced. He now focuses primarily on writing and publishing. His first 2 thriller novels, Ghost Light and The Understudy, were published in 2021. You may have come to the get-together here. And his newest book, This Above All, How to Live an Artistic Life, was just released by Ibis Books. He lives right down the road in Arlington Park with his beloved Rebecca and their 2 silly pups. As for his latest book, if you liked The War of Art or The Artist's Way, then This Above All is for you. Even if you've never picked up a paintbrush, can't carry a tune in a bucket, or just the thought of getting up on a stage makes you break out in a cold sweat, this book will inspire you to unleash your inner artist. In this pull-no-punches examination of the obstacles and rewards of living an artistic life, award-winning director, actor, playwright, and author Jason Cannon shows readers how to harness their creativity, rediscover their courage, and break free of the forces holding them back. So now Jason is going to read a chapter of his book, and we'll do a little bit of Q&A, and then everyone can get their book signed and chat a little bit. All right, read it.
Thank you. Thank you, Bryn, and thank you, Bookstore One. Oh, hey, welcome, Randall. Thank you all so much for coming, and also, yes, there's little swag bags. You are all welcome to take one of those. My publishing company is Ibis Books. I publish both myself and other authors, and in that swag bag there's a little treat, some contact info, a bookmark, so please help yourself to one of those and take it with you.
And is it an ibis feather?
No ibises were harmed in the making of these swag bags. They often eat in our front yard, but no, these are completely fabricated feathers. That'd be a tough job. Yet again, thank you all so much for coming. We are here for This Above All. Before I give you a little excerpt, the book actually came, as Bryn mentioned, I've written a couple thrillers first, right? And my first one's down on that shelf right there, which is awesome if you want to grab that one too. And once I left the theater and moved to full-time writing, I've been threatening my students for years that I was going to write an acting book. It's been in the back of my head for at least 20 years, because I've been teaching acting in theater for so long. So I started writing it, and then immediately just kind of a different book kept calling me over to the side, saying, no, in these times, there's something else that you want to say. You made a huge life change. What was that about? And this book is kind of my best attempt to talk about how being an artist is a universal truth. Whether you're a business person, a chef, a construction worker, whatever you do, what I discovered from teaching acting, because my favorite classes to teach were always the one-on-one classes, or the classes with, as I call them, civilians, non-theater people. I would see them break through in ways that would remind me why I was doing theater. Because it doesn't pay great, but it was a fulfilling life. And to see students open up, to see freshman students who are accounting majors have these huge breakthroughs in acting class, because they had to take a general ed course. That was incredible to me. And then at FST, so many of you were my students there for so many years, and seeing the way you would learn something about theater and apply it to your own life. That's kind of what happened for me with this book. It's taking my 25 years of professional theater experience and applying it to uncovering truth, to unleashing your own courage, to finding ways to bring artistry into the things you do every day already. I'm gonna read just a couple little, I always get asked, who's the book for? The book is for anyone looking to break through the forces holding them back. The foreword is written by a retired Lieutenant Colonel Green Beret, Scott man, who was a student of mine at FST. He did 11 tours in Afghanistan. Some of you were in class with him. His story is incredible. He was at the end of his rope. He found a way back. He started giving talks to corporations, CEOs, using lessons from Green Beret leadership to help them lead their companies. He came to my class to learn to be a better speaker. But then he got bitten by the bug. And at age 50, he started taking acting lessons. And he hired me to help him write a play. And that play toured the country before lockdown stopped everything. Toured the country. It's a play based on his lived experience. They travel with a professional psychiatrist because triggers happen all the time. But it has touched Blue Star families. It has touched veterans. It has touched people who live with veterans. And that came from him having no idea he was an artist and using art to heal himself and other people. He was so kind enough to write me this foreword. I want to read you just 2 paragraphs of what he said, because it goes directly to what I mean about this book being for anyone looking to break through. This is retired Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann. Art is food for the soul, and we're all artists if we choose to be. It's accessible to every one of us if, and this is a big if, we are willing to let go of the ego, do the work, and when the time comes, give it away to whomever needs it the most. This book gives you the process and the roadmap to do this every day for the rest of your life. And in these crazy, troubled times where materialism and mass technology mask the beautiful journey to the truth, that's really good news. I read, when he sent that to me, I was like, okay, I hope my book does that. But he's a Green Beret, and the methodologies I described in this book helped him get to where he was going. So hopefully they can do it for you too. I want to share just a couple chapters here. They're all very short chapters on purpose, like potato chips, you can't stop. Hopefully you can still see or at least hear me. If this is easier to read if I have the book on my lap. Everything in the theater is a lie. That set is not a living room, not a battlefield. The walls are flimsy and meant only to last the run of the show before being repurposed, recycled, or thrown away. And you might have noticed the 4th one is missing. That sublime color in the light, it's not a sunrise. And the birds chirping, heralding the dawn, a digital sound file triggered by a finger pressing a computer key. It's all a carefully calibrated combination of lighting instruments and speakers, gels and wires, designed to seduce the audience's senses just so. Manipulation, pure and simple. Those props, fake. That bourbon those progressively drunker characters are chugging, watered down iced tea or sugar-free apple juice. Those jaw-dropping costume changes, rigged, underdressed, designed to fool and thus delight you. That actor, she's not a Valkyrie despite her sword. He's not a prince despite his crown. They're not the citizens of a besieged city despite their groans and torn garments. And those lines the actors speak, not spontaneous, not suddenly occurring to them to say. Those lines are rehearsed and polished, timed and honed. Everything in the theater, and I do mean absolutely everything, is a lie. Everyone knows it. Even the audience. They buy a ticket, walk through a lobby, sit in a completely artificial setting. They look at a playbill, see the actors' bios. They know everything they are about to witness is a lie. The job of the actor is to lie to people who know they are being lied to and convince them they are telling the truth. And you know what? Despite all the lies, or rather because of them, a well-done piece of theater will transform the shared experience of the audience into catharsis. And in the throes of that moment, truth may decide to whisper from the wings or even grace us with a glimpse of itself. Or not. Such is the indifference of truth. But the audience and the actors, every time, come together to seek. We go through the rituals, picking up tickets at will call, putting on costumes in the dressing room, ordering drinks in the lobby, putting on makeup, reading playbills, and hearing Places, Please, and agreed to believe that when the lights go down and we take a breath together and the lights come up, the lies will fuse into story, and the story will be true. Art is seeing. The cast and I were doing some fine-tuning music rehearsal on the big final encore song of Buddy, the Buddy Holly story. I and my musical director, Spiff, an incredible fellow who can play over a dozen instruments at the professional level and even several simultaneously, had been very intentional about creating a room where best idea wins. The cast was comprised of several ridiculously talented musician, singer, actors, and while I had taken piano lessons for a year as a kid and dabbled in choir in college and can karaoke Amin Sinatra and had somehow early in my acting career finagled my way into getting hired into the choruses of a few musicals, I was under no illusions. This cast would have a lot more musical insights than I, and Spiff and I insisted they share them. So, as is the case with big final encore songs, there were several 16-bar sections built in for the various instrumentalists to take a spotlight solo moment, shred a guitar, slap a bass, rock some keys, wail a harmonica. We came up on a section that, as written, was intended for Buddy Holly. We noodled it for a couple minutes, and then the actor playing Buddy, another mind-blowingly talented fellow named Michael, stopped and said, "Hey, I just had a solo last song, and Seth back there on drums hasn't had one yet. Can we give this one to him?" First of all, just consider that for a moment. This is the lead, the star. This is the dude playing Buddy friggin' Holly in a show called The Buddy Holly Story. For him to have that level of big picture awareness, to be so in tune with the needs of the show, to be so willing to release his ego in service of the work, that is artistry in motion. Spiff and I glanced at each other and grinned. Best idea wins. I turned back to Michael and said, "But of course, Seth, take it away." And then, holy expletive on a stick, I got to watch a platinum-level drummer create from scratch a jaw-dropping drum solo. For 10 minutes, everyone ceded control of the room and the music to Seth. He experimented, he conducted, he asked for the guitars and bass to back off, to come in a beat later, a beat earlier. He asked the keys to punctuate his snare. No, wait, the hi-hat, horns blast on two. Everyone wait for the pickup, fiddle, fiddle, paradiddle. By the end of those 10 minutes, Seth was sweating. The entire room had pulled into trench-deep focus. They ran it once more from the top. Seth smiled, gave me a thumbs up. We all awoke as though from a shared dream. And dreaming isn't that far off, because for most of those 10 minutes, Seth's eyes were closed. He was seeing something we couldn't, and working to bring us into the know. He actually was seeing something that didn't even yet exist. He was, as they say, in the zone. Much like you'll hear athletes at the highest level talk about the game slowing down. My mother is a professional soprano, gospel galore. I grew up watching her bring congregations to tears. She also often closes her eyes as she accesses the truth in the songs she shares. When she closes her eyes, she is seeing ever so clearly, and the notes she sings are infused with the emotion she feels as she sees that which is beyond sight. So when I say art is seeing, I am not devaluing the other senses or prioritizing literal sight. I am speaking of the proverbial mind's eye. All of our senses, in their ways, are able to see, to perceive, to understand, to have sight. Let me hit you with some Greek, because Greece is the wellspring of the theater of Western traditions. Our word theater comes from the Greek theatron, which translates as viewing place or a place of seeing. Fun fact, theatron actually refers to the area of the amphitheater where the audience sat, not to be confused with the orchestra or dancing space where the actors performed, or the skene, the tent, that was the precursor to modern scenery and sets. Theatron, like church, can also mean the people themselves, both the seats and the seated. Do you see? The whole point of theater, of any art, I would argue, is that the audience sees. It's not enough merely for the artist to see. When the artist sees something in the way only they can, they then do their art in order that others may see it too. Seth's drum solo, my mother's song of faith, hopefully this book. Expressing oneself is a means to the end, and that end is creating relationship with the audience, whether viewer, listener, or reader, so that they may come into a deeper understanding of their humanity. Living an artistic life means you keep on looking till you see, because art is not a what, it's a how. One last little bit. Art is not precious. Art does not reside in an ivory tower surrounded by a moat with a heavy iron gate that opens only if you know the secret password. It is not esoteric. It does not belong to the enlightened few. Art is not a riddle to be figured out. Art does not require pinched brows and knowing nodding. Chaucer, big-time literary heavyweight, right? Well, if you haven't yet, check out The Summoner's Tale, one of the most epic fart jokes in all of storytelling history. And not merely a fart directly into a friar's face, but then a serious discussion of how to divvy that fart up into 12 equal parts so as to share it with others. Scout's honor, that joke lives in pinky sticking out literature. It's awesome. Shakespeare needs no introduction. Get this, Shakespeare was popular. The Netflix of his time, hot romance, kick-ass fight scenes. You ever seen Hamlet done well? That dude is hilarious. Tragic, sure, it's in the title, but he's also the wittiest guy in the room. Keep digging into the bard, Stratford's own Billy Wigglestick. Cross-dressing, mistaken identities, twin siblings causing parent trap-esque plot machinations, clowns, music, songs, magic, like literal magic. Hell, one guy even has his noggin turned into a donkey head, and the ass jokes come so fast you can't keep count. Shakespeare wrote for everyone. Elevated and insightful in one scene, ribald and bawdy in the next. Not because some of us are elevated and others of us are bawdy, but because all of us are both. It's vital to entertain. In fact, entertainment comes first. Entertainment is not a dirty word. Art must entertain and delight the senses, or no one will pay attention. Art is not about message or theme. Those are byproducts. If the audience ain't paying attention, your message ain't getting through. Spoonful of sugar, baby. And it doesn't matter if your spoon is silver-plated or carved from wood. Art belongs to all. Just remember this. Shakespeare wrote in iambic pentameter. That's a fancy poetry term for a line of verse that rhythmically goes like this. Da-dum, 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 da-dum. You know what else goes like that? Da-dum, 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 da-dum. Your heart. This above all. That was my little excerpt. The title comes actually from Shakespeare, from Polonius' speech in Hamlet. But this above all, to thine own self be true. I pulled it from that, and in the book there is I break that speech down hardcore in the book. The book is divided into 5 parts. Part 1 is all about truth and lies, kind of setting the stage. Part 2 is about the necessity of practice. Part 3 is very theater and acting centric, taking acting lessons and applying them to other world practicalities. Section 4 is about a biomechanics workshop I've been teaching for years, where we balance sticks, and it's just the most keen metaphor for storytelling and balance that I've ever experienced. And then part 5 is about the courage to live an artistic life. So it's all very much hopefully organized in a way that takes you through a journey with me through how I apply art to life beyond being an artist. But yeah, I would be happy to take any questions you have about me or writing or the book or anything you just heard. 5 or 10 minutes of questions before we kind of make this more social, and I'll sign whatever you want me to sign. Hands, faces, books, whatever.
You talk about it, everything as being a
Yeah, so the comment here is that it doesn't necessarily have to be a lie. And I appreciate this because that's what part one is all about, is I really dig into what is a lie, what is truth. Because I start part one with a quote from Pablo Picasso, who says, "Art is the lie that tells the truth." We all know that that painting isn't actually fruit, right? It's acrylic on, right? The actual essence of the thing. The painting is not the thing. The painting is a representation or an artistic interpretation of the thing. So we use lies, just like with everything in theater. Everything in theater is false, but it's the bringing together of all that falseness that allows us to access the deeper truth. A big part of the truth lie theme I talk about is the power of story, right? The power of those words once upon a time. There wasn't really a princess who slept on a pea. Not historically accurate, right? But there's a truth in there that we all understand. That story is the way to any truth. I talk about in the book how story is not what we remember, but it's how we remember anything at all. We turn everything into narrative because the world is chaos, life is chaos. As human creatures, we've learned to create narrative so that we can carve meaning for ourselves through story. Other questions, comments? Yeah.
I'm just curious. You link being an artist with being communicating. In other words, you sort of, at least this is paraphrasing, an artist should be attempting to communicate with the person who's receiving, or picture receiving, so to speak. What do you think about the artist that only creates for themselves?
There is value to just expressing your creativity here. Emily Dickinson's a great example. She tried to get published, couldn't, left all of her poems in a drawer, and after she was dead, they were found. And then she became a bedrock of American literature, right? A CD that's not played is a coaster.
Okay.
If you don't crack open my book, it's a doorstop, right? So, yes, the artists themselves may gain value, and this is not to diminish that at all. But community, connectivity, catharsis only happens when there is a receiver, right? Writing is a very lonely gig, right? Isolating. But that's why events like this are so important. And what's interesting too, I am learning theater is what we call a synchronous event. It happens in real time. It's the actor and the audience together in the same space-time. They breathe the same air for 2 hours. The event happens between them. It's synchronous. This book, you all are gonna take it off and read it, I don't know when. Asynchronous, and I won't be there. Hopefully you'll leave a review so I know you read it, right? But I won't be sitting on your couch going, hey, did you like that chapter? What'd you think? You didn't laugh there, you should have laughed it. Right? Well, I won't be there, right? It's asynchronous. So the way catharsis happens differs based on the art form itself. Music, same thing. A live concert is going to be different than when I plug in a CD and listen. Oh, boy, I just aged myself. Or if I stream an MP3 or whatever. Again, synchronous versus asynchronous. But there is something about a live audience. If you read interviews with any sort of, my dad and mom are still very heavy into the church, and a lot of stuff through pandemic was interesting. Where does church still happen on Zoom? If you're not together, is it a congregation? I remember when I was 12, my grandfather, who was a bishop in our church, pushed in a videotape, and there was a prayer. I'm sitting next to my grandfather, we're watching on TV, my grandfather praying. And I remember thinking, does that prayer still count? I think, is God hearing that prayer? Are we praying right now? Is God working asynchronous time? I don't even know, right? But to your point, there's a difference between a live event, a recorded event, synchronous versus asynchronous, right? But if I'm only writing to please myself, and you read it, you probably won't get anything from it. I have to be aware that someone else is going to be reading this, or I won't be shaping it in the most effective way. is my current understanding of how it works. But hey, read my next book, maybe I'll change my mind. Thought I saw a hand, yes, and then here.
Back when Shakespeare was alive,
Yeah.
I went to, I was a theater major.
You were a theater major when Shakespeare was alive? Okay. The syntax was amazing there, it was incredible.
I was a theater major.
Great.
And I took a playwriting class.
Yeah.
And my whole freshman year as a theater major, they were like, what's the central theme? What's the central theme? What's the central theme of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof? What's the central theme of Death of a Salesman? And so, ever since then, and I will tell you honestly, I've been to hundreds of plays. I have always sort of, after the curtain comes down, I always sort of think, what's the central idea? And I can't let that go. So when I have taken playwriting classes, and I've taken 2, I can't get more than 5 lines because I want to be didactic and I want to tell them this is the central idea.
Yeah.
I have a central idea. I just need to build a play around it. What do you suggest?
You should have taken my class. Yeah, theme is death. Theme will kill you as a writer. Whatever you're writing. If you're trying to be didactic, it's going to be brittle and dry, right? And you'll be self-censoring yourself the whole way, right? A better question than what is the central theme is what is the one event? What is the event of the play or the story? Wizard of Oz, the one thing that happens, Dorothy discovers there's no place like home. See how discovering is an active verb. A theme, there's no place like home. The theme is the byproduct. The theme will be there, right? A theater history or theater analysis course, yeah, dig into theme. Playwriting, I never playwrights should not worry about theme. They should worry about action, character, conflict, secrets, tension, suspense. They should worry about, is the audience leaning forward? A lot of the times, many of you know this who took playwriting with me, I will always push the playwright to have a title. Don't you dare come to me with untitled. No, even if it's a working title. God invented the delete key for a reason. You can change the title. But if you don't have a title, you don't know what you're writing. You don't know. If you don't know where you're going, how can, right? If you focus on event, action, conflict, theme will happen by itself. But don't cart horse it, right?
Yes, that's good advice. Thank you.
There was a hand here, and then you, right behind you first, and then here.
Well, I'm going all the way back to the Picasso statement.
Yeah.
And because in my reading somewhere along the line, Picasso, when he did his squiggly little lines, laughed about it with his comrades, said he was fooling the world and he enjoyed doing that. And so my question is just the responsibility of the artist to really tell the truth.
Oh yeah.
And not just the monetary.
Yeah. Often, this is why I read the chapter specifically, art is not precious. When an artist starts believing their own hype, when an artist becomes a muppet of themselves, as I like to say, right? Becomes if you've ever gone back and watched Whoopi Goldberg's earliest work, her one-woman shows, they are transformative. If you only know her from her comedy, or even from Ghost, right? If that's all you know of her, you're missing out. Go back. She's become a bit of a muppet of herself. As much as I respect and admire her, she's playing a role now, like on The View or whatever, right? She's playing Whoopi. She's not being authentic. Part of that is just the place she's chosen to be. Picasso went through phases like that too. I saw one man show on him, it was brilliant, read a biography. Because none of us are static, right? So it's not a judgment. It's, some people go through it and come back around. Everyone's evolved. Serena, right? Evolving away from tennis, right? She's an artist of the court, and now she's going to do something else. To your point about responsibility, my take is this. as soon as the ego comes before your work, I just have no patience. I don't, to your point, I don't believe you, right? People who start believing their own press, start playing games with us, start trying to manipulate the audience instead of take the audience on a journey. And again, I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I personally don't go down that path. That just doesn't do it for me. It feels like a charlatan or a con man. That got deep. You had a hand, and I think then we'll let people wander.
Jason, I'm interested in your opinion of graphic novels. And I'm not talking about Captain Marvel. I'm talking about Harari taking Sapiens and turning it into a graphic novel.
Say that again?
Harari's novel Sapiens he now has a graphic novel out from that book, and I'm just wondering where you think that falls in the field of literature and how and why.
So the question, graphic novels themselves is the first part of the question, which is it's a completely legitimate form of art itself. There are brilliant graphic novels out there. Fun Home, brilliant. Original Watchmen, brilliant.
Mouse.
Yeah.
Did we just say that at the same time?
Yes, I have one, I sent it to you.
I have both.
Your point is that there was a novel first, and then the author adapted it into a graphic novel. I have no problem with that. One, it's the artist himself doing it. Two, in my mind, that's about expanding the reach of the story. Some people, there's going to be, he's just reached a larger audience, a broader audience. More people now are going to be likely to pick up his story. Now, was he able to do it effectively, skillfully? Did he bring in a different illustrator to work with him? I don't know. But you'll see this happen a lot. I taught a class on adaptation. You'll see it either going from one form to another, anytime, from a novel to a play, from a short story to a film. Right? What's the big, Amazon just dropped its whole gigantic Lord of the Rings, and that adapting written material that's actually unfinished, and adapting that into a gigantic TV spectacle. Adaptation is tricky because you're working in different forms. A graphic novel requires a different mode of storytelling than a novel does, right? So think about a theater for a second, right? Lights up. This is something I talk about with designers all the time. What's the first thing the audience sees? Because in those first 3 seconds before any actor has spoken, the world of the play is established. How much information can we get to the audience just from lights up? Whoa. That's why sometimes a type of show, when you walk in, you sit down, the choice of what is shown on stage is super intentional. Is the curtain down? Is all the furniture out? Is there a prop that gets taken away before the actors come on? There's a statement being made even when you just sit in the audience before the show is started. So it's all about story and information delivery systems. A graphic novel has illustrations and fewer words. A novel has no illustrations and a lot more words.
So is the answer then to reach a deeper audience or to reach the audience?
To reach a wider audience. There are going to be people who would never pick up a novel, but will pick up this comic book. Right? So
That's not a condescension in your mind.
No. Again, Shakespeare. I go back, Shakespeare is popular.
I see.
All of us are brilliant. All of us love a good fart joke. He loves fart jokes. You can say, right? But that's important. Is that it's okay. I'll point to FST because they do this so well. We call them entry points. In FST, you can go see a light summer musical comedy. You can also go see a super edgy stage 3 play. You can also go see a cabaret. You can also go see children's theater. You can also go see an improv or sketch comedy. Right? Not everyone is in the same place in their evolution as a human being. There might be someone who the only way they're going to take something in is through a graphic novel. Maybe they become a novel reader, maybe they don't. But if I'm going to prejudge them That's on me, not on them. Yeah, two more hands, and then seriously, I want to make sure I can sign everybody's stuff. So we'll go here and then end with you, Randall, all right?
My mind's been in a million different places, but I kind of got stuck with this gentleman here. I've always viewed art as either communicative or aesthetic, and not being talented in terms of being able to draw a portrait of this lovely woman here. Back in the early 90s, I studied fine art photography, and that was more like learning the technique and aesthetics, but it very quickly morphed into social documentary photography.
Yeah.
And I was really onto something, and then I moved to Florida. I was fortunate enough to have as my personal professor somebody who had taught graduate level at Pratt in New York City, and he helped me through a trauma with the art. So it morphed into social documentary because I had to communicate. It didn't have to be about what I was going through, but I had New York City as my palette and black and white film with an awesome Nikon and screwed digital shit. Excuse me. So the aesthetic, yeah, I did some aesthetics, but it to me that's like going to a street fair and seeing a beautiful statue with gorgeous form, where you can just appreciate something for its aesthetic value. But even as a child, when I would draw with a pencil and then black ink on a piece of paper, the imagery was meant to communicate a message of how I was feeling or interpreting the world as I was developing. So Florida Studio Theater, I've been a subscriber, I don't know, 15, 20 years, front row center. I walk in, and as soon as you call, I don't know theater terminology, but you say lights on or something?
Lights up.
Lights up. I am not in that theater anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
I am in there, so that's more of a transformative.
What I would say to you is that it's actually both and. The transformation is only made possible because the people working on it have high aesthetical understanding.
Unbelievable. That
Right.
I'm from the New York area,
Yeah.
and I took well advantage of theater and every form of art. Well, not ballet, not opera, yeah.
Let me really quick though.
Yeah.
You mentioned a statue,
Yeah.
which is static, right? And again, asynchronous. I talk about this in the book a bit. A great example, Michelangelo's David.
In real life, when I was
It's
there,
stunning. It's stunning.
I couldn't. My first husband was trying to drag me
Yeah.
away. Right. But in pictures, it's a nice naked man. So when you see it in real life,
Let's go a little deeper than that. I love that.
oh my God.
Because here's the thing, to your point that you were making, that even a static object is trying to say something. Michelangelo's David is the one we all remember, even though there are thousands of depictions of the David Goliath story. Thousands, in painting and sculpture and whatever. What put Michelangelo's apart is that he was one of the first, if not the first, to depict the David Goliath story without Goliath and before David has won. Think about the statue, right? This is the moment. If you look at the statue, his head's turned to the side, right? In his hand, his veins are kind of bulging, and he's a shepherd boy. He's not a trained soldier. And Goliath has been intimidating his entire army, all of his brothers, for days. He's looking off into the battlefield at Goliath, who we don't see in the art, but we then impose our own version of Goliath out there where David is looking. What is it in my life that seems insurmountable? To your point, he's also naked. That's an artistic statement. It's not just aesthetics. David is stripped of protection, of everything but his faith. Right? I could nerd out on David for a long time. I did it, but the point is, even though it's a static object, it is a very specific version, interpretation of a story we all know, a story that's iconic.
But without that backstory that you just explained.
Oh yeah.
Without that backstory, from an aesthetic standpoint.
It's also
that
still
was
amazing.
perfection.
Yes.
It was absolute, utter.
It's gotta be both.
perfection,
It's
and
both
that's
things.
why I could not, I just kept walking in circles and stopping.
Yeah.
I couldn't leave.
Yeah. Both and. Totally agree. Randall, finish us out.
I'll just say thank you for reading, Jason. I
Oh.
really appreciate that. It prompted a lot of flashes of insight for me, and I appreciate those. I'll share them some other time.
Okay.
I really appreciate your reading and your book, and continue. Good luck with it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, they've got copies for sale down there. James and Roxanne will take really good care of you. I'm going to hang out here for a little while with a pen. Grab a swag, please. Check out my website, other books by myself and other authors as well. Get on the mailing list too. You'll get updates from me and freebie giveaways every once in a while. And thank you again to Bryn and Bookstore One. Help support this place. They are so awesome.